We are back now on the Chip Shot Football Podcast here on Friday to discuss a little bit more in depth on the Washington Commanders. They lost last night. It was a tough loss yesterday for Washington as, they lose consecutive games for the first time this season. And, it's been a pretty rough couple days, last couple 5 days, because of the fact that, you play a tough physical game against the Steelers. Then, just last night, another tough physical team in the Philadelphia Eagles, especially on the road. It's been a pretty tough week here for Jaden Daniels, the Commanders overall. They get knocked out of the first spot in the division, and now they sit seventh. So, it brings up the question now with Jaden Daniels especially not necessarily playing at that MVP level that some people considered him in the middle of that run that the Commanders and himself went on. So some people might think that this is the part where the Commanders and Jaden Daniels sort of hit that plateau or hit like their biggest hurdle where they just can't overcome it, or maybe it takes them too long and they just ran out of time towards the end of the year and they might miss the playoffs or something like that. The rookie wall, as some people might put it, for Jaden Daniels. In your first year of the NFL, you go straight from college, into combine stuff and personal workouts and individual workouts to get ready for the combine and the draft and everything like that. Then right away, just a couple of weeks later, you start preparing for rookie minicamp, and then everything just hits you like a moving train. You just got to get on it, and the first year, it's a whirlwind of everything, and I don't think rookies, especially like Jaden and CJ last year, are given enough credit, for just figuring everything out on the fly and going as far as they have so far. It's really remarkable, that first season, but it's logical to think at some point there has to be a moment where things aren't going great and you have to get through it, and it just catches up on you because you don't have that much time off, right, as a rookie, just from the quick transition from everything. So just watching it has been noticeable, I think, because of the change of pace, I think, of this team recently. I feel like it's not so smooth anymore, or I shouldn't say anymore, but just for the time being, it feels a bit just unorganized, or like they're not all on the same timing. There's some plays where it doesn't seem like they might be on the same page necessarily, just from watching it, right? But still, it's something that they have to figure out now. Where they're still 7-4, it's not like the end of the world, right? They still have a lot to go. But to kind of give a bigger context around this, for the season, Washington has been averaging about 366 yards per game, and over the last 2 games, they've averaged about 253, about 100 drop-off there, give or take. Over the last 2 games also, they've had a 30% third down completion percentage as well. Not very good, obviously, stalling a lot of their offensive drives and making it hard for them to build any sort of momentum if you're not converting on third downs. Also, they're averaging about 4.1 yards per play now, and we mentioned Jaden Daniels having the 23 rushing yards over the last 2 games. Definitely his season low so far in his first year, and over the last 2 games, Jaden Daniels specifically has been completing about 59% of his passes, 393 total yards between both games, and 1 touchdown and 1 interception as well. So, it's, again, he's a rookie, right? It's weird because we put him already in some MVP considerations, which is crazy, but these are, kind of rookie numbers, if we're being honest, right? Around 59% completion percentage, 393 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. It's not to the level of struggles that maybe Caleb's going through, but these are the struggles that young players go through at some point, early in their careers. And this Commanders team also, a lot of people point to the fact that they're 0-3 against teams that are over 500, which really puts into question the legitimacy of this team, right? If every time they've played a playoff caliber team they lose, how much are they considered a legit team? If they can't beat another good team, are they even really good, or do they just beat up on bad teams, right? Those are all logical things to bring up, and I understand all of that, but Also, from just watching as well, like I mentioned before, it looks like Jaden also. It might just be me. It feels like he's playing with like heavy legs. Going back to the fact that he just might be fatigued, obviously from the limited time off. But he just looks like his legs are a little bit heavier. The rib injuries could be something that is still affecting him. So yeah, I mean it's tough, right? It's obviously a struggle to go through. The longest season also of his playing career is something that you have to adjust to. But overall, we brought it up yesterday how I think they definitely need more weapons, and we just brought it up in the last segment too. Terry McLaurin has one reception, Noah Brown has one reception, and most of the receptions last night, if it wasn't a running play, it went to Zach Ertz or it went to a dump off to Austin Eckler or Brian Robinson. Honestly, a miracle that they were able to stay in this game for that long, pretty much into the third quarter, because it was quite literally all the plays were going just short little dump offs to Eckler or Zach Ertz or Brian Robinson. And, it was working, but at some point, these great teams, these great all-star built teams are it's going to catch up to you, and the talent is just overwhelming, especially when you got a guy like Saquon just waiting back there. And Terry was blanketed all night. Noah Brown really didn't contribute much, and it goes back to the lack of rushing, I think, production that we've seen from Jaden Daniels, because if already Terry's taken out of the game, Noah's taken out of the game, all you're doing is dumping it off. Your running game is solid, but you can't just do one thing. Where we critique teams for being one-dimensional in the passing game, you can't just be one-dimensional running the ball either, right? You have to mix it up and show some variety. And with the fact that they're running the ball pretty effectively, you still take away Jaden's running ability, and now you're without that as well. Without Terry, without Noah, and without Jaden Daniels' running ability, you are quite literally just down to your running game. And it's not enough, honestly, against these great defenses, these great offenses, to try and keep up with them in these games where the stakes are at an all-time high, obviously, as we get closer to the playoffs. And, does this mean the Commanders are done? Is it unrealistic for them to kind of claw their way back and get over this? I don't think so. I still have belief in the Commanders. I like what they're doing. I like Dan Quinn as a candidate for Coach of the Year, and things like that. And he's done a remarkable job. And there's no comparison with either roster. I think by far the Eagles have a better roster, but still the Commanders, with a little bit of luck, the missed field goals and things like that, they were able to hang around, and I think that has a lot of merit in the job that they're doing. So I think they can come back and still compete for that division title. If you remember last year, it was around week 11 where the Eagles came in as the heavy favorites to win the NFC East based on the season that they were having. And right around this time and going forward was when they fell apart, essentially. Now, I don't think that'll happen again with Saquon Barkley there, but they've already had their bye week. They had an early bye week this year, so you don't want to think anyone's going to get hurt, but there's no more rest time essentially going forward, so they're going to have a lot of football just continuously here, and then they have to ramp it up in the playoffs, which isn't an easy thing to do. So that's why I don't really like the early buys. I'd much rather my team have middle of the year or late in the year buys like the Commanders do, which is another reason why I am feeling a little bit more confident that they can resort all these issues going forward. And also, if you look at the schedules, now that I bring up the bye week, the Eagles have a much tougher schedule to go through to get their hands on the division title compared to Washington, because the Eagles still have to play just next week, probably their two hardest games of 2024 are the next 2 weeks, at Los Angeles, the Rams, and at Baltimore over the next 2 weeks. For the Eagles, then they're at home against the Panthers. They're at home against the Steelers, which is probably not going to be an easy game. Then they play Washington again before they close it out against the Cowboys and the Giants, which they should win those games, obviously. But, that run there, just short term, the Rams, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Panthers, and the Commanders, all in this span of the next 5 games, all those games are tough except the Panthers game. So it's a lot tougher than what the Commanders have to deal with obviously playing Dallas next, then the Titans next, both of those games at home. Then they're on their bye week. Then they travel to New Orleans. Then they play the Eagles at home, like we mentioned. Then they finish it off at home against the Falcons and away at Dallas, right? They only have the Eagles as their toughest game and the Falcons also. But it's definitely manageable, and I'm pretty sure they're favorites in all these games except the Eagles game. So it's still there for them. I think they could get around 11 wins. Honestly, they're at 7 right now, and they're gonna beat the Cowboys twice. They should beat the Saints, and they should beat the Titans. So those are the 4 wins right there that they need to get 11 wins. And then the game obviously with Philadelphia is gonna be huge. So it is undoubtedly a rough moment right now, but I'm still holding faith in this team. I think they are talented enough, and I think Jaden will start to pick it up once again. But it'll certainly be on Cliff Kingsbury as well to help the young quarterback out, not just put it all on his shoulders, because again, he is a rookie. He will need help. It will be up to the organization as well to come together and put together a better plan going forward for this team. But they're not dead by any means necessary. Don't count them out just yet. But on that topic there of talking about the schedules a little bit more, we're going to get to part 2 of our weekly game picks here in just a few seconds. We're going to go through the 6 games remaining from the Sunday slate and just give you guys my predictions and why I think each of these teams is going to win on Sunday. So don't go anywhere. We have a lot more to talk about on today's show.
Looking for